Forget everything you thought you knew about the Middle East. For a decade, we were sold a simple story: Sunnis versus Shias, or the moderates versus the axis of evil. But that old map, it's burning. As the Iranian threat flickers, the good guys aren't celebrating. They're turning on each other. From gold mines in Sudan to secret ports in Somalia and nuclear whispers in Pakistan, a new cold-blooded war for real estate and power is emerging. The religious masks are off, and the gloves are coming off with them. Welcome to the new Middle East, where today's ally is tomorrow's biggest obstacle. Let's start with the Horn of Africa. What is the Horn of Africa? It's that tip there in Africa through which you have to pass to get to the Suez Canal. And the first focus where we have a quarrel in this area is Somalia. Somalia, a country that, well, what more can be said about it that hasn't been said? A failed state. Essentially, it became a battleground between two completely new alliances. We have on one side an alliance that is the United Arab Emirates, Ethiopia, Somaliland, the new political entity that Israel recognized, and it's kind of a ports alliance. The Emirates, through a very large shipping company they've called DP World, but we're not going to get into that now, the Emirates want to control all the sea routes on the way to Suez. Therefore, the Emirates support Somaliland, even though they don't necessarily officially recognize it because they don't want to upset the neighbors too much, but in practice, they help. And what's the story with Ethiopia? Well, Ethiopia wants access to the sea, so there's an arrangement in which the Ethiopians help Somaliland, and in return they get access to the sea, which is also convenient for the Emirates. But on the other side, we have the guys for whom this doesn't work. We have Somalia, whose capital is Mogadishu, and they are in a panic. So who do they turn to? They turn to the enemies of Ethiopia. Turkey, for example, signed a maritime defense agreement with Somalia. In essence, the Somali Navy is a Turkish Navy. Turkey is building all kinds of military bases and establishing itself in Somalia. But let's not forget about Egypt. But now, some of you might say, wait, aren't Egypt and Turkey rivals because Egypt hates the Muslim Brotherhood and is deathly afraid of them? And Turkey is kind of a Muslim Brotherhood state? The answer is yes. But in this specific case, they can work together. Egypt sees Ethiopia as an existential threat because of the dams they are building on the Nile. And for this reason, it sends weapons and forces to Somalia to threaten Ethiopia from the flank. This is very scary for the Ethiopians and also for the Egyptians and for everyone. There's a lot of tension here. So here is the first alliance of friendships. Is this a religious struggle? Well, it's a real estate struggle over the coasts of Africa. We also have the War of Brothers. Why a War of Brothers? Because the Emirates and the Saudis tend to refer to each other officially, at least, as brothers, as sister states, sister kingdoms, or whatever you want to call it, even if in reality they hate one another. So, where is the first clash between the Emirates and the Saudis? In Sudan. Here in Sudan, which we all know and love, in Sudan, a very bad place, and with a very bad civil war that's been raging for a long time. And this war is completely just a proxy war between the Emirates and the Saudis. The Emirates support a militia called the RSF, the Rapid Response Forces, led by Hamdati. It is a militia which holds the gold mines that the Emirates love. And can you blame them? On the other side, we have Saudi Arabia and Egypt, which support, or at least lean towards the regular army of Al-Burhan, because they want stability in the region and not chaotic militias fighting and spilling refugees here and there. Okay, so there's another example where Egypt is also somehow involved for its own reasons. But this time, it's not with Turkey. It's more of the Saudis. Although Turkey, of course, intervenes everywhere it possibly can, but we're trying to keep the situation kind of simple. But that's not all. This isn't the only proxy war we have between the Saudis and the Emirates. We also have Yemen. What do the Saudis want in Yemen? We had a very long civil war there. Basically, the Saudis want to get out of Yemen mud, but they want Yemen to be united and quiet. Why quiet? Because it's their southern border. That's it. They don't want refugees. They want to regain their legitimacy as those who stabilize the Arabian Peninsula. They don't want the Houthis under Iranian influence. But with the decline in Iran's power, maybe it's possible to tame the Houthis. Who knows? And why, for instance, wouldn't the Emirates or the Saudis go and fight the Houthis directly, but instead fight each other's proxies? The reason is that the Houthis can fire missiles directly at the Saudis or directly at the Emirates. And they have done so in the past. Both the Emirates and the Saudis are very afraid of this scenario because it essentially destroys the entire reputation they are trying to build as a kind of futuristic cities where you can do business and everything is good, come live here with us and bring us your money. It's not good for that reputation when sirens and missiles are falling. So, we will ignore the Houthis, we will fight between our proxies. So the Emirates have, or rather had, because there were very dramatic changes in recent weeks, the STC, which is the name of the militia supported by the Emirates. This militia lost to the Saudi proxy. Here too, the goal of the Emirates is to control the shipping routes, to control Bab el-Mandeb Straits, and this nice little island they took for themselves. And even if it means Yemen falls apart, they don't really care. But the Saudis prefer that Yemen doesn't fall apart. They want to lead a united and strong Arab world, or Muslim world, call it what you will. Let's look at another country that is relevant to the region. Jordan. What is Jordan's problem? Jordan is a kind of sandwich. On the one side, it has Israel. It has a border. It has a peace agreement with Israel. But if you ask the population, what are you doing for the liberation of Palestine? When was the last time you liberated Palestine? When was the last time you contributed to the Palestinian cause? And the answer is, maybe we haven't done enough. Maybe you even intercepted Iranian missiles and protected the Zionist entity. Oh my goodness. Now, the Jordanians can sell that the Iranian missiles are a violation of their sovereignty, blah, 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 but many people are upset by this. How do we know that many people are upset? Well, what if I told you that in the last election in Jordan, yes, Jordan has elections, it's not a democracy, but there's still a parliament. In the last election in Jordan, in September 24, what was the largest party? The Muslim Brotherhood. In Jordan, even though a year later they outlawed the Muslim Brotherhood, this party still exists. It's a long story, but basically there is a reason that they outlawed it. And the reason is that they are the most popular party in Jordan. So they need to be outlawed. Which, of course, tells us that the public doesn't exactly love what's happening there. The king is somewhat weakened. Of course, Iran, on any other day when it is functioning properly, would have exploited this chaos to maybe they still are, but we don't know, but we can assume that they would exploit this chaos to easily smuggle weapons through from such organizations through Jordan to Judea and Samaria, for example, just as they did in Syria and Lebanon. Now, both the Saudis and the Egyptians are afraid of such a situation where Jordan falls. I assume the Emirates care a little bit less because they're probably less invested, but they also very much dislike the Muslim Brotherhood. So maybe from this aspect they do care. But let's move on and talk about another interest and focus. Pakistan, also a very important country, a nuclear state, a very populated state, where there are all kinds of talk about all sorts of emergences alliance between Pakistan, the Saudis, and the Turks. There's a whole party going on over there. Basically, three countries with fairly strong armies, and even if you want to dismiss the armies of Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, it's hard to dismiss the army of Turkey. This is a problem for Israel. Probably because what's happening is that while this is going on, the Emirates are building alliances with India and Israel. Okay, so we have India, which hates Pakistan. We have the Emirates, who hate Saudi Arabia. And we have Israel, which, well, it's starting to become clear that it's going to have to hate Turkey. So, this kind of alliance where everyone hates someone else and everyone wants to protect themselves from someone else, and they create this kind of an alliance. Saudi Arabia, by the way, is investing billions in Pakistan. Pakistan is in a state of more or less permanent bankruptcy. One can say that they're always in this situation. But in exchange, Pakistan gives the Saudis something of value. Military manpower, for example. Mercenaries, if you will. Or maybe some kind of a nuclear promise, right? Because the Pakistanis have nuclear weapons. And if the Pakistanis are completely dependent on the Saudis economically, then the Saudis can maybe whisper to them, can we have access to your nuclear weapons? Also, Turkey. These are relations where Turkey is basically the weapons supplier for Pakistan. In summary, we are used to thinking about the Sunnis as one bloc. But if we get too close to the Emirates, we annoy Egypt, which doesn't like the moves in Ethiopia. We annoy the Saudis, who don't like the moves in Sudan and Yemen. We're kind of annoying everyone because in reality, the Muslim world is currently against the Emirates. Not that I'm saying it's bad to get close to the Emirates. Maybe it's worth thinking a little bit more about what's happening in Jordan. Is Jordan weakening? Because at least the central government in Jordan is weakening. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? A threat? What is the nature of the threat on Israel's longest border? And Iran, if only it could, if only it weren't under the threat it is right now, it would sit on the side and laugh while the Sunnis and the Jews fight over the ports in Somalia and over the gold in Sudan. It would continue to establish itself in Syria, in Jordan, building its power. But Iran right now is also not in a good state. So, oh well, it's out of luck. For Israel, the challenge is shifting. It's no longer just about stopping missiles from the north. It's about navigating a web where befriending the UAE might mean alienating Egypt or Saudi Arabia. In this new era, diplomacy isn't about choosing a side. It's about surviving the friction between them. Join us next week. Shalom.